Welcome. I should say thank you to everyone for having me. I was telling Louis, my colleague, I don't know if I've worked harder on a project and given 30 minutes to crunch it all in. I got to say though that Carol CAD done an excellent job working with those guys. Also working with AMCA. No one partner here would make it happen by themselves, and it takes a lot of leadership to be able to present this and put it together, through Mark and whatnot. So I just want to preface that by saying there's a lot of people doing a lot of things, and there's also a lot of eyes watching what's happening in Australia. And I go to a lot of BIM forums internationally, part of the IFC and the board of directors there, and there's a lot of focus and interest into what's taking place in Australia with the BIM-MEPAUS initiative. So just thought I'd mention that. So I'm going to start off by introducing the site itself. I've got some videos of actually how to log on to the site, how to download the application that runs inside of Revit Mep, and actually how that they go and select components, queue them up for download, be inside of Revit, and actually have those components show up inside of the models themselves. So that's the first part of the presentation. Next part of the presentation I'm going to talk about has to do with the software itself, what pieces are required in these workflows. And there's a lot of acronyms flying around, a lot of, you're sitting in the audience going, what is it, MEP, XYZ, ABC, and it gets to be a little much to try to grasp all at once. I've got some models, some definitions of what software is required at different models, what kind of data content is required to support those models. And then I've got a little bit about just managed content in general. I'm also showing the workflows of actually being inside of a Revit model, converting that Revit model, those type of things. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. So this is you guys have seen this shot right here. So this is the video that I put together. This is how to log into the site itself. Part of the package that Jeff mentioned earlier in terms of their offering includes this access to the site here. The way this works is you go in and you log in, you put your information in. Carol CAD has some information that you put in about that, username and password. And I'm a very fast typer when I'm doing it on here, as you can see. A standard license agreement in regards to downloading the software. So this is the add-in application that goes inside of Revit Mep, and this is just a preface of what's going to happen next. So you see you run that application. And so that's how you get into the, get to the site itself. This next video is the demonstration of actually going and searching the site. So I'm not logged in just yet, and there's a link right there, which brings up the BIM-MEPAUS data content site. So this is the managed content itself. And if you click on the duct up above, the cover flow sorts as to which manufacturers have duct, for example. Go to the pipe and it filters out the piping. You're looking at the manufacturers. I'm looking for Victaulic. And in Victaulic, I think there's about 383, something like that, I can't read from here, components that we've got in Victaulic right now loaded on the site. It includes valves, and there's quite a bit more to be posted that we've actually built and just are working on putting it up there. So now, you notice that was in there, there was a little bit grayed, so you're actually looking at it, but we're not logged in yet. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. Again, my typing skills. So now, as you're going in there, you'll notice that there's a PDF icon there. That PDF, you click on that, that is the PDF that was created when that content was version created at that time. One of the big initiatives, a part of this managed content, is to be able to version content and put it out that's current. And this ensures this PDF goes with this item. Okay, dimensionally, that's very important for a contractor that's procuring this material. There's also another icon there that has a comment area. So if there's something wrong with the comment, a comment can be made on behalf of the entire industry, and we can push that update out to everybody, as opposed to being a silo, one company making that happen. So what I've gone here is I've added the components to my cart, and I've checked it out, and it says your confirmation, you're ready to go download this content. So I'm going to switch to Revit Mep, and there's our add-in. This is the software that we downloaded and installed off of the previous video. And so I'm going to go ahead and hit download. I chopped out, obviously it takes a little longer to download from the Wi-Fi in the hotel to get this to come in. It's a little scroll bar, I took that out. So that content is now loaded into the model. On the low left side, you'll see the components right there. I'm just clicking on it. Up above, you'll see the actual editing of the family, well, a view into the family type itself. There's a PDF that references back to that same PDF that was on the site when you were browsing and looking for that component. And it's basically popping that PDF directly from inside the model. That consistency in that data in that PDF is also maintained in the TSI software as well, because we're managing and hosting content for both those. So right now, we're currently managing and hosting about 175,000 items. And it includes not only the Australian market, it includes the US and Korea as well. So I'll go ahead and move along here. So the next part of this presentation is talking about what applications are required in what different workflows that we're looking at. And in the same way that Warwick was talking about the managed content was hard to get into that mode, and I'm feeling the same way about BIM all the way. BIM all the way is definitely looking forward. That's where we're going to end up. There's no doubt about that. So I'm just going to highlight the three workflows and what pieces of software are required for each one of those. So you'll notice I'm in the federated model. Most people associate this with Navisworks or Tekla BIM site. And that's where you pull multiple files together, do coordination, those type of things. It's definitely a kind of a silo, lone BIM type of scenario. So right now, the BIM-MEPAUS data design content would be here. Whether you're basically that wall that was shown earlier where you're just hopping over the wall and starting from scratch and doing 2D, that's an option to redo that. I think that's the whole goal of this initiative, is to not have to redraw those. And we saw that with the presentation that was given earlier. So the idea is you either are going to redraw it or you're going to use BIM, the FabMP-AUS, and the content set to convert those models. I've got a demonstration video of that as well. I can tell I'm talking very quickly. I got a lot of slides to cover. So I've got the, once you get it into the construction side, you saw that the folks are using CAD-DUCT and CAD-Mep to make that happen. That's the details about procuring, estimating. You saw the model, the duct work that went through all the way through fabrication. That is the TSI software that does that. Then again, viewing that in a Tekla. CAD-DUCT is the manufacturing software, most widely used ductwork fabrication software internationally. So the BIM all the way workflow basically requires the same content working across the flow chart, which Warwick has talked about extensively, popping out of that, going down to fabrication, supporting any workflows that would be AutoCAD-based workflows with FabMP AUS. That would include CAD-DUCT and CAD-Mep, and going into CAM. I got to say, in terms of a contractor, I understand there's a lot of folks out there that are going from design BIM and using paper drawings and picking off materials and doing those type of things. As you get more involved in BIM and as you try to grab more value out of that, and it's probably what Canstrero is going to talk more about using BIM for 7 years, the more you engage on the manufacturing side, the more value you can pull out as a contractor, okay? And that includes the presentation by Tekla as well, on the Tekla Trimble. And then the round tripping, the hybrid of this, is basically starting off with the Revit MEP content, pulling that through Fab, doing your workflow in CAD-DUCT and CAD-Mep, and then writing that back through the data content set within the data content environment, back into Revit as a native component in Revit, and then dropping out for your fabrication. Okay? This is just another way to look at what's required data content-wise. So I'm looking at here basically the workflow versus the product versus content itself. So you'll notice we've got Revit across on the design, obviously. BIM all the way, it's coming down the middle here. We're pulling more and more out of Revit as Revit's getting more and more data rich as we're adding more and more to it. So if you look at here, this is the data content that we're talking about, BIM-MEPAUS, and basically it's coming down this way here. It's design content, and the detailed content that supports the workflows of actually the component that's hollowed out for manufacturing, going into Fab, for example, and Revit. That's the data that's supporting that as well. So this is a I'll go back one here. This is a model that was given to us by CarolCAD just a couple days ago. So I wanted to show you guys what's available now today. This happens all the time. The solution's there right now to take a Revit MEP model and pull that across into Fab, okay? So this is the model that we're looking at here. It's design. This is the model pulled into Fab MEP Oz. And, you know, not everything is going to come across due to design issues. The way it was drawn within Revit. So you'll see quite a bit's come across. There's not a lot of overhead here in terms of what you have to do this. You'll notice here I've got some taps. They're not right-angled taps, so you can't put a tap on a rectangular duct and expect the software to auto-calculate that. There's a lot of auto-calculating going on here. You've got hangers created automatically. The connectors, this is auto-estimated, which we saw earlier, that fitting now. This is detailed content for fabrication. You'll look right here. This is the component itself of a bend. And if I look at this bend right here, there's no need to have that short piece right there. That short piece of that size, you know, probably costs $200-300. So that piece can go away, delete that, stretch the elbow out, and now you're looking at a manufacturer. These are the type of things that contractors are going to do to these models within the Fab MEP Oz and the AutoCAD workflow to pull out more value as a construction. This is the flat pattern development of those 4 panels required to make that up by the cut pattern and also the fold pattern of that. That's the amount of detail that these models contain in them. Again, this actually came directly from the Revit model that we saw. And then I just happen to focus in on, you know, this is a squared around scenario. It's going up and over. The squared around part may not be that tight available. It's choked down through ASHRAE standard probably. And so I'm just showing back into the Revit model. That was the Revit model before, and you know, this is kind of the after. So I've got some comment at the end about how that plays out for the contractor. So if you take that model, you throw it over the wall and say start from scratch, as opposed to let's take that model and run it through Fab MEP, okay, you can see how much comes across automatically for a detailer to pick that up and do more work with it, all right? So this is stuff that's available right now. So this is the what we just saw right now is pulling that across, and this is supported through CAD and TSI, obviously. And the next, the workflow here is basically showing it going back in. And interesting enough, this is about a 6-minute video that I just tried to chop up as fast as I could to just really quickly show what it's doing here. Basically, what we've started off with is we started with a Revit MEP. Excuse me. And we talked about the pump manufacturer earlier, right? And the data in that particular pump, those parameters, we have preloaded in this demonstration to show those parameters. And so we're going to see that in the type. This is kind of dovetails into what CAD had shown earlier as well. So here's all the pump parameters in there. Now, our goal is to be able to support that from managed content and to put that data directly into the model and define what those parameters are. There's a lot of costs going on in the industry across from manufacturer to contractor throughout, and being able to nail down exactly what those parameters are. And that's probably the biggest thing about this initiative is we can move forward knowing that there's standards in place. So this happens to be the valve within the Revit model, and it's showing again, the PDF sheet associated with this. I'm doing this because I'm going to show this again inside of the Fab MEP product. Okay. So within the add-in there's an add-in for Revit that we've written, the map's written, that when we select the components, we're going to create what's called design line elements. And design line elements is grabbing the duct, knowing what shape it is, what size it is, and what orientation it is in. And then what we do is we use our technology called design line. And we know that a right degree angle is a bend, okay? We don't know that a piece of duct with a very obscure angle on that is a tap, okay? But it's going to go through and calculate these things to figure out how to put that back in the model. So we're looking at the system types on the left. We're applying those MAP services on the right-hand side, be chill water, be Victolic, whatever the service is as you pull it in. And now you're seeing the model being built out inside of Fab MEP, okay? And the hangers are there. The hangers support what's going on with the Trimble and the field link. We're very involved in that in multiple ways. We've got a direct interface to the latest API within Trimble. Again, just showing again the PDF, they are consistent. So when we're building the data in the cloud, The data's up here, the PDF's up here, and then we're going down to Fab MP, then we're going down to, or yeah, I guess down, you can go down the cloud, going down to Revit MEP to create consistency between those. Okay? So this is now reversing the process and taking this information and going back into Revit. Okay? So a little, I should have edited this part out, I think. So export's complete, going to the blank model. So now we're talking about putting back into Revit a very specific manufactured component. When that valve was created in the first model, it was a pipe to flanged valve. Well, mechanical contractors know that you have to make that connection, you need a B&G set, you need a flange, you need a weld, and you need a piece of pipe. When we write that back into Revit, that's exactly what you're getting. You're getting the flange, you're getting the B&G set, you know, the weld, everything is included as we write it back into the service back into Revit. And the way to do that is we have to do it parameter by parameter. We can do it parameter by parameter because we're the author of the content at the highest level. Okay? So data content is not just about providing content for design, it's supporting workflows within the BIM-MEPAUS initiative. This is a couple of quick slides about just data content in general. It's been alluded to a couple times in the efficiencies that we're trying to get out of as these dots of silos of different companies creating their own data content. What we want to do is create a community of like-minded people creating content for the industry. And I can say from my perspective, and Lewis, my colleague, we're very humbled by the opportunity that we've been given to create the content for the industry. And we take it very seriously. We recognize there is a lot of inefficiencies in this process. I've been involved in software for a long time and built out data sets for at least 3 different software packages. And we've got a little smarter this time about how we're doing it. And that is basically doing it one time for 2 packages and possibly more. So some of the benefits of it, we can update content, we can share cost, and we can support exchanges between the different software exchanges, just like we saw the Revit. We're using the Revit API to write back those components directly within inside of the Revit environment from Fab. Okay. So so data content. Here's the cloud. We've got the standards that are plugging into that cloud. That has to do with the package that CarolCAD's putting together. It includes the templates, the colors, all the things required to draw in a design environment, and being able to feed that down to the multiple CAD packages within the industry. And also supports the exchange. As updates are coming in, someone says, hey, that should be purple instead of green, or it's the wrong dimension. We can take feedback directly from the BIM-MEPAUS website. That goes directly to our data team. The data team can fix that, and thereby putting that out and being able to update the content and send an update out to everyone that says, here's a new piece of 2.0 of that particular fitting. Okay? This needs to happen. In terms of information and what BIM can do, BIM offers a lot, but BIM's not going to offer very much if we don't wrap our heads around the information side of it and being able to control it and deliver it directly to the people that need it the most. And that is the designer. So this is just some examples of what we're doing with the BIM directly coming from the cloud. We're basically powering Revit. We're also powering our Fab products, the manufacturing component, the estimating modules, and the AutoCAD workflows. And internally, when we take that file in from Revit, as that stuff's coming in, didn't really talk about it in detail, but we're also supporting estimating reports to Excel. We saw a little bit in the presentation earlier where all the pricing for all the components are there. The BIM-MEPAUS initiative supports that process, and it's a very valuable process for the contractor. And then obviously CNC manufacturing is a big part of it, and prefabrication. Taking that cost information and applying it to a schedule in terms of the data sets, our application's been doing this for a long time, but be able to share this across other folks within the general contractor. I think what's most interesting about this has been going on for a long time, okay? The date of this construction of this building goes back to 2006, 5 and 6, I believe. So this stuff's been going on a long time. It's been kind of siloed out, and we can all take advantage of these type of technologies if we standardize on one standard. And I believe Michael Canistero has some stuff on prefabrication, but this is just a quick little video. This is done in the UK. Prefabrication, and from a contractor's perspective, that's it. Labor in the field is where your risk is, and prefabrication manages that risk better than any technology we've seen out there. So what you're looking at here is this is a rack that's been created, and the bill of materials comes directly for that rack. It's rack number 100, and the individual that's going to put the pipe on that goes to the cage. The guy hands him his fittings, and he goes, puts it on the rack, goes, grabs 101 and puts it on that rack. These are all pre-assembled. All the hanger points for those that rack to hang on comes directly out of CAD-DUCT and or Revit, and goes directly to the Trimble MEP software and hardware device. I'm the biggest proponent of the Trimble. I feel like I invented it. No, I am. I'm a huge fan of it. I can't imagine anyone not doing it. They don't build roads with tape measures anymore, right? They're using GPS. It's the same thing inside the building. And one last bit here. Just want to make sure I'm my time here. Awesome. Okay. The one last bit here is to talk a little bit about design content versus detailed content and how that impacts your models. And my last slide here is to talk about the reality and some of the and managing the expectations of what we get from this technology. And I'm going to do that in the last slide, but this is a precursor to that. So this is basically showing a T inside of Revit. That is one T, and the bill of materials is down below. That's not a T with a reducer on it. That's a reducing T, okay, but it's just called the T. So basically looking at three components right there. In the manufacturing world, and this may or may not be true depending on what kind of material you're working with. So that, in this particular case here, that's a 200 by 100, that's a 200 T, straight T, and on the run of that T, it's a 200 by 100, and then you've got I think it's a 200 by 125 down to, right? So it takes all these components to come in. Well, if you have got a drop, and you're trying to go T and directly drop down, and you're trying to do it in this space right here, okay, the manufacturer's content's not going to apply to that. So you got to be realistic about what you expect to create when you're pulling across your models, going directly from auto fabrication perspective. BIM all the way, looking to the future. This will be resolved in the future. Right now, design content has its limitations and what it can do. If we could do more with it, we would. I'm telling you right now, we're pushing it as hard as we can, and the AMCA is the ones that are basically making that happen. And the relationships that this group has fostered beyond just within this association here are very strong. I mentioned a lot of people looking at what's taking place in the industry here. So in terms of some of the limitations of what we can expect, that's one of the things with software vendors, also tell it what it can and what it cannot do. I used to do training back when we started the company about 9 years ago. And when I'd train, I would train as much about what the software can do as what it can't do. I think it's just as important in terms of managing the expectations. So some of the things that you need to think about in terms of if you are trying to do this pump header and you don't have that exact dimensional data for all those components right there, don't expect all that stuff to be perfect. The design models that are coming out of BIM-MEPAUS, that pump's not completely satisfied yet. Okay, those type of things have been lost in the past without standards. Now there's a standard that says this pump is not approved yet by the manufacturer. Okay, this is not fabricatable yet. And the BIM-MEPAUS addresses these critical workflows that previous to this is the wild, wild west of BIM. It's a spec in and no one has a clue what that means, to what level of detail, to what to fabricate, to show a model to the owner. What's the end goal of this? Okay, that process I showed. I've talked to several people back in the States. LAX project that Mark was going on at the time. We talked to one of the detailers in that project. What they're doing is they're converting those models, those MEP models, through FabMEP and pulling those in through CAD-DUCT and CAD-Mec. And I said, how much is coming across with your design line? And he says about 90% of the models coming across. Okay, so that means that in his mind, in his perspective, is if I had to start from scratch and do it all over again, it would take me 4 weeks. Okay. Going through that model and verifying those connection points, some of the stuff I highlighted in that model that came across, they can do it in about a week. Okay? That's fourfold on your productivity rates. Okay? That's a major, major cost savings through a technology that allows you to do that. And having the BIM-MEPAUS content makes that percentage go up and up and up the more we're putting into the models through the BIM-MEPAUS initiative. Okay? So I would mention that to echo what was said earlier is more kind of speaks of this as a design. What do you call it? Design. It's a work in progress. Okay. In the software world, we kind of call that beta. All right. And so for us, we need more feedback. Okay. We need some folks to get engaged, to go to CAD and get engaged, and purchase the part to get into the content, find out what manufacturers you're using, pushing the suppliers to come to the table and be willing to provide the components for you, the designers, and the industry to be able to pull that through to your models. When I go talk to a manufacturer, Jim, that's really interesting. You do vendor relations, I'm not sure you're a vendor directly related to me. We don't have a financial arrangement together, okay? But you as a contractor and you as a specifier have a relationship with the manufacturer. And if you follow the money as to who's going to make this happen, it's the people in this room that get involved in it and push the manufacturers to the overall big picture. Okay, BIM is not going away, and you'll see more presentations today about how much power is involved in it. But it's going to take involvement from the people in this room to get people to provide standards like the pump industry has. There's quite a few more industries that we still need to approach, and that's a big part of, I think, everyone's role in here as an industry to get involved. Don't go off and think you're going to do it all yourself in a silo situation in your own data content. Okay? It's very, very expensive. For the folks that have done it, they all know. Okay? There's an easier and more cohesive way to do that. So that's my presentation. I fit it all in. Thank you very much.